Hello and welcome to the Property Unleashed podcast with myself, Mark Fitzgerald. And today I have a special guest joining me. Jonny Landels is the owner of Next Step Nutrition. As a certified nutritionist and certificate master health coach, he has accumulated over 5,000 hours of one-to-one consultations and helped over 237 people with health and fitness goals. He has spoken to companies like Barclays, PwC, BBC, Radio Leeds, and now educates property investors on the PIN circuit. I would like to welcome Jonny to the show because for me, we are doing this for a reason. We all want to pretty much get into property to build up wealth, to build up a legacy, but we have to take care of ourselves. So it's great to be able to have somebody like Jonny with his expertise to come and join me here. And hopefully, well, he will do. I know that for a fact because I've spoken to him quite a few times now. Point us in the right directions. Welcome to the show, Jonny. Great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Thank you.
No problem. No problem. So I got there in the end. And basically, if you could just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background and how you've sort of got to where you are now.
Sure. Yeah. So I got into the health and fitness industry about 11 years ago now when I started just exercising for my own health and well-being. I kind of started formally going to the gym around 17, 18. It had never been something I'd been massively intrigued by. I'd always been active with playing mostly rugby and cricket a bit as I hit my sort of 17, 18. And as I got into university and started training a lot more, I started just kind of coaching people on the side of my master's degree at the time. And after I moved to London, and I was trying to make it as an actor, actually, a musical theatre actor way back when. I got a job as a not a personal trainer, but a coach in a gym, basically for my main wage. And as I was doing that, I realized that a lot of people struggled with nutrition, particularly. I myself had been someone who had always struggled with my own diet and food intake. I was a bit of a larger bloke growing up. And my parents both did different diets as we were growing up. So I'd done different diets as well. I wanted to educate myself on what actually is healthy eating, how to kind of have that balanced approach, that better mindset and relationship with food. And as I went through those certifications myself, I was like, let's help other people with this. Loved doing that, which is when I created Next Step Nutrition, which was about 6 years ago now. And that's led me to where I am now. I continue to kind of educate myself as much as possible. And I love working with people on their health and fitness.
Well, that's great. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And I know you're also, for your hobby, so to speak, or just to build up assets in the background, you invest in property. Yeah. And I met you at, I think it was Manchester, was where we first met. Property. We were both speaking at the event. And I have to say that I was really intrigued by what you had to say, because a lot of the myths that we sort of grow up with, I was certainly taught by my parents and my grandparents and everything. You sort of bust a lot of those myths. And as property investors, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, even if you're just in your day job as well, at times can be really, really busy. And it's very easy to grab snacks just because you think, I can't take care of my health today. I've got to get out there. I've got to grab this. I've just got to eat. But, you sort of turn it on your head and say in certain circumstances that, yeah, you can have the treats, but you've got to, everything in moderation, including, so to speak, moderation at the end of the day, and making sure that you know what you could do. So if you're having a busy time of it, let's just say, and I just want to jump straight into this because I love the way that you go through this when you're doing your talks as well. If I'm out and about and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I'm hungry, I want something, I might go and have a Taco Bell, I might have a McDonald's, or you're just at a services. There's plenty of options there that are really quite fit. And I do that now. I've sort of got it imprinted in my head, your slide with the chicken and all of that sort of thing. But just if you were busy yourself and you had to grab something, what are the sort of things that you can grab without feeling guilty?
Yeah. Well, great question, Mark. And I want to reiterate your point about sort of moderation, because it's a double-edged sword, that everything in moderation phrase, because if you have everything in moderation, soon enough you're not in moderation. But my standpoint is removing that guilt around food choices for people and reminding them that you can have the food that tastes great, that you know, even if it is a McDonald's or a Taco Bell, there is a time and a place for those things. But I remind people that as soon as you remove the guilt around food and you change your approach to that food to think, well, I'm going to have this as, you know, as mindfully as I can, even though I'm busy, and I'm going to eat until I feel satisfied, you can have a lot less of that food and feel satisfied than having to say, well, oh, I'm being bad because I'm having a Mackie, so I might as well get, you know, a supersized burger, get the McFlurry, get a side as well, and then just eat until you feel sick. That's the bigger difference. But most of the time, we're looking for balanced meals, right? We're not looking for anything extravagant. It's going to sound very basic to everybody listening, but just like in, you know, building a business, the basics done consistently well over a period of time will get you to where you want to be. And with nutrition, a balanced meal would be a portion of protein, which would be your meat or your fish or your dairy for a vegetarian. For a vegan, you're looking more towards a tofu or potentially a vegan protein source. And that is where things get a little bit more complex. You're looking then for some form of carbohydrate, be that some bread or some rice or some pasta. And then half of the plate, if we were looking at this on a plate shape, would be fruits and or vegetables. So if you were on the go and you were genuinely hungry, you were genuinely needing sort of like a lunch or a mid-afternoon snack, service stations, Tesco Expresses, all of these different shops have these options now where you can grab, hey, why don't I grab a protein bar, or I grab a sandwich that's got like 20 to 30 grams of protein in it, and I pair that with some fruit or some carrot sticks or something of that ilk. And you can quickly see that no matter where you are and where you're going, you can get these basics and pair them together to make meals. You don't have to accept what I call the fool's choice, which is I'm on the go, I'm on the road, and there's absolutely zero way I can eat healthily today, so I might as well just go and grab that supersized McDonald's.
Yeah, I think I've lived in the fool's choice for many, many, many years, and I actually, like I say, listening to your talk, which is why it's great to have you on today. It changed my whole way of thinking of things. And when you do go into service stations and things, because I do travel around a lot, probably like yourself as well.
Yeah.
You start to notice the more healthier options. Whereas before I'd have just walked straight into Burger King or just gone for the easy option. You know what I mean? Now I sort of walk through and I think, oh, hang on a minute, I could buy a pack of chicken, which is really, really nice and really filling. And you might not even get through the whole thing, but once you're filled, and I think that's the other biggest thing for me is I was always sort of brought up with everything on your plate. You're not leaving the dinner table until you've finished. You know, we're talking old school now. Show me, you know what I mean? And that is completely wrong, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And my mum and dad grew up in the same households. It wasn't as imprinted on us as kids. Like, we didn't have like formal desserts afterwards, and there was no like finish your plate or you don't get dessert. But I work with a lot of, my niche is very much 30 to 50-year-old people, and so a lot of the time it's combating that food relationship to say, well, you know, if you're going to be finishing your plate, then start with less, for one. But then combating that idea of finishing your plate, I know that there's a big thing around food waste, and so with my clients we talk about having that food again later or sharing it with another person. I remember, because I live in Leeds, when we would go out for dinner in Leeds, if I had far too much food from a restaurant, because portion sizes are just astronomically big, and that's again because restaurants are charging more and more money now and people want their value, so you get far too much food. We'd be in such a better economy if restaurants just gave us less food and charged us less for it, but that's a different topic. I would give my leftovers to like homeless people on the street, and that was my way of then saying, here, you know, like, I don't need to finish this food and someone else will appreciate this food. And it's obviously better than giving them money, because you don't know what they might do with it. And combating that is a big thing for a lot of my clients. Like, you don't need to finish your plate. Everyone's looking at, oh, do I need to cut carbs, or do I need to cut fat, or do I need to go vegan? Do I need to go the other extreme, which is carnivore, which is, you know, a whole different dietary paradigm? But really, it's just because we're eating too much. We're eating too much too often. And that's because restaurant portion sizes are huge. Even when you're going and buying snacks now from M&S or Waitrose or whatever, most people would feel completely satisfied and full from just having one sandwich, or maybe even half of that, and a bit of fruit. But we're so conditioned to continue eating way past our fullness levels. And that's the biggest thing I help clients rediscover. It sounds so simple, like eat when hungry, stop when satisfied. Oh, no, that's too simple. But actually, none of us do it. We all eat out of boredom. We eat out of stress. We eat out of all these other reasons. And then when we do eat, when we're hungry, we just don't pay attention to what we're eating at all. And by the time we're finished, we're like, oh, wow, we're so full and stuffed. That's what we need to stop doing. And actually, it becomes about being present with your food. And there's a big thing about mindfulness and all that jazz. And when people are busy, that's like, oh, I don't have time for that. But you do. You have time to take sort of 10 to 15 minutes to eat a meal. You just need to believe that you do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also you've got to, it's the mindset change, isn't it? It's getting out of the old routines and getting disciplined into new routines. And I think it's the same as in business. Yourself, having your own businesses, we're all pretty good, or a lot of us are, at planning things, pushing forward, growing businesses. And then we neglect the one asset in that business, which is yourself. Because without you, a lot of the times your business is not going to keep going. It's not going to grow. Do you know what I mean? So, and that's why I've completely changed my own mindset on this. My own mindset shifted everything, because I want to be here to see, if my kids have kids, I want to be a granddad. I want to be able to run around as a granddad. And I know that my lifestyle throughout my 20s and my 30s certainly isn't going to help me when I'm in my 50s and my 60s and 70s and things. So, it may be too late, but I think better start now than, better start now than never start. So it is really about looking after yourself and moving yourself. And like you say, the only excuses you're making when you're doing stuff like that is the ones that you're making to yourself, because anybody can now turn around and actually start changing their lives, losing that bit of weight, looking after themselves. And I personally like to try and see people as well just take that bit of time to not only plan out their businesses, plan out building, property businesses or normal, but also plan out what you're going to do for your own diet, your exercise, things like that. If you've got a load of phone calls to make, you want to call a load of agents and things, go for a walk and get some headphones and call the agents while you're walking, or walk around in a circle. I'm terrible for that. If I start a phone call with my headphones in, I'm normally halfway up the street, because I just walk around. I walk around all over the house as well. Wife thinks I'm talking to her and she starts answering me. I'm like, I'm on the phone here, love. Do you know what I mean? All of those sorts of, so there's a lot of things you can incorporate, isn't there, into your day-to-day. But I mean, for people with really busy lifestyles that are at the moment listening to this, but thinking to this, I just haven't got time for that. I work a full-time job. I'm trying to start another business here, and they're all on about fitness and health. That's all right for them. It's easy for others. What would you recommend, actions that people could start taking now to help themselves?
Great point, Mark, because what I do in my presentation, and you notice that, is I talked about lowering the barrier of entry to make it simpler and thinking about focusing on less. And as we know about building habits, like we would with businesses, we don't go from 0 to 100, do we? We start with small tasks that we can consistently do. That builds up our success pathway, which brings us around to a positive mindset and makes us do more of those things. We need to do the same thing with health and fitness. We can't go from doing nothing to doing loads. And obviously we're not. The thing about the fitness industry, especially social media, is that it's filled with mid 20-year-old personal trainers who are all jacked, shredded and ripped, who train twice a day, eat their meals out of Tupperware and be like, hey, you can do this too. We've all got the same 24 hours in a day. And it's like, well, actually, people have very different roles and responsibilities, right? And I'm 32 years old. I don't have kids, but, I'm engaged. I've got puppies. I've got this business. I've got a property business. I've got investments. I understand what it's like to have your life pulled every which way. But as you mentioned, that planning aspect of things just makes your time so much more efficient. The best coaching tip I got when I was doing my certifications was helping people manage their time and saying, look, you need to, 1, be aware of where you're spending it, and then 2, be aware of where you can cut things down. Because I will, bet anyone a lot of money to say there are some inefficiencies that are going on in people's day. They're either being not as productive as they can be, or they're taking far more time for things because they're not being as directive as they could. And you mentioned planning. I've got like a little sort of weekly journal that I use, and that helps me plan the month. It helps me plan the quarter. It then helps me plan the week. I use Google Calendar to the nth degree. Like, you should see my colored time blocks and all the rest of it, because if you put things into shorter time blocks and you make that aspect go, right, okay, I'm only giving myself an hour to do that, you'll be amazed at what you can get done, because a task will fit the time it takes to do it. If you say, I've got till 2 weeks time to write this blog, well, the night before that, you're going to be writing that blog. Whereas if you're like, okay, on Thursday at 12 till 1, I'm going to be writing my blog for the week, creating this podcast for the week, you get that done. Health and fitness is no different, right? Why don't you put in the fact that you're going to go for a morning walk or a lunchtime walk or an after work walk and have that separation between work and home life? If you've got a busy day of appointments, as you mentioned, Mark, you can take them on the go. Hey, do you mind if I take this on a walk? Most people won't mind. I myself right now, I'm stood up. This is a standing desk setup, and I have a treadmill underneath me as well. So a lot of the time when I'm working, I might be walking while typing out programs or replying to client check-ins or even having calls, as long as they're okay with it, because it does make a bit of a noise. But there are ways that you can fit this in, but it's called scheduling it in, creating systems and a structure around it, starting small, and then being consistent with it. And that's why I said to people, you don't need to train twice a day. 2 to 3 gym sessions a week is what everybody needs. And then it's just about eating in a certain way, and you can fit that in. It takes conscious effort because it's a new habit. But if you just say, oh, I don't have time for that, I can't do it, you're just instantly in that negative mindset.
Yeah. And I think you're right. You're so right there in the fact that a lot of us were either 100% in or we fall flat on our faces. And I do think with the health and fitness, and I've done it myself plenty of times, whereas you go to the gym regularly all the time, and then that habit starts to die down a bit, wears off. And then 2 months later, you haven't been to the gym and you're back at the gym and everything's sore again. And you're like, oh God, so you overtrain again because you want to get back to where you were. And then the motivation goes again, or you hurt yourself. And it's just a vicious cycle. But like you say there, if you build up to things slowly, so just, for me, it was just like, make sure I have a bit of fruit each day. So I made sure that if nothing else, if I ate my apple and I have my vitamins, I now have myself, and this is quite a big thing for me, because I've if people who know me know that I'm certainly not the fittest person around, and I have over the last few years really started to take care of myself. But I have greens. I have greens every morning as well. I drink just so that I can guarantee you that I've had all my greens basically for the day. Now I will have other greens with meals and things, but I'm a bit of a fussy eater. So it's not as easy for me to be able to, pick up broccoli and all of that sort of thing. Whereas if I can mash it all down, stick it in a drink and down it, it's done. I've done that. I can mark that off. It took seconds and I can get on with my day. So I've sort of just put that in my morning ritual, and it's quite filling as well.
Yeah,
so
it is.
There are, I mean, like you say there, in this day and age now, with so much technology around, with the desks that go up and down, absolutely brilliant. I'm going to invest in one of those, I think. But the treadmill underneath, I didn't even think of that. I've got happy days. That'll be all right. I'll get my step count to like 100,000 a day.
And that's the thing, right, Mark, is that like these things don't need to be against each other anymore. Like, and you can do these things on a budget. Like, I'm on a standing desk setup that I had made by a friend of mine. It's got my business logo on it, which makes me feel a little bit pro. And it cost me like £80, because it's just a wooden one where I can adjust the heights of 2 different tables. And so if I decide to take a sit down break, I just bring the monitors down. I do that, and the walking, as I mentioned, I alternate that between going outside anyway, because there isn't anything like fresh air. But just like you rightly said, if you can schedule these things into your day and start smaller, so that you can be more consistent, you're going to find yourself in a much better place. And I've read Atomic Habits. I'm sure a lot of people who are business minded have, because James Clear get into bed with his publicist. He's been writing about it for years and did a great launch with that. But something that I read again in a different book was this idea of, well, daily habit streaks often lend themselves to the all or nothing person. Like, oh, I've missed a day, so what's the point? I might as well stop. And actually, the things that you do over a course of time are much more important than what you do day to day. So I like to give my clients their perception of their weekly efforts rather than daily. Your step count is going to alternate day to day. The amount of vegetables you have day to day is going to alternate. But hey, actually, over the course of a week, if you're hitting, there or thereabouts these targets, you're doing great work. And that allows you to then have that oscillation, particularly if you have some days busier than others. doesn't matter. You can move things to different days, but the thing is that you have to be aware of what you've got going on. Otherwise, you just let life hit you in the face. And it's like Mike Tyson said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face, and that's true. So start with a plan, and then if things start to get in the way, you can move things around. And then, okay, if something doesn't happen, all right, we'll try again tomorrow. You're human at the end of the day. Things are going to come up and mistakes are going to be made. But if you start with reviewing your week and going, right, I've got these things coming up. Where am I going to get my non-negotiables done in terms of health? That's a great place to start from. And you said, like, why don't we pay more attention to this thing? Like, this is our biggest asset. We work so hard. We stress ourselves out all the time. And we think, oh, I don't have time to get to the gym. I don't have time to eat some vegetables. It's like, well, why not? Like, because if you don't do these things, like income protection insurance, yeah, okay, that's there. But like, why do you ever want to call upon it? Get ahead of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when COVID hit and everything, I made my garage into a gym.
Great.
So I've got no excuses now. Do you know what I mean?
You really don't, Mark. No.
Well, that's it. But take the excuses away. Can I be asked to get in the car and drive to the gym, or because it wasn't walking distance or anything like that. It's like no. It's basically put your gym gear on and get next door. Do you know what I mean? Go into the garage and get cracking and stuff like that. And I'm quite a competitive person, so I like to try and make things fun and gamify it a bit as well. So it's a bit like I got myself a Peloton bike, but mainly because I can do the cardio and stuff like that, but also I can compete privately against other people and not not affect anybody or anything like that. Whereas other people will go on the bike and do the regimes and stuff. I'm looking at who's above me on that leaderboard and I'm trying to beat them. Do you know what I mean? And that's and it makes it fun for me. So it means I push myself, but in a way that I find really challenging and I find it fun. And I think that's the other thing is trying to make things fun. I mean, all too often, and I've suffered from this for years, I might have a good, Monday to Friday, and then Friday night comes along and you go out and you have a few bevies and you grab a pizza and maybe, a kebab if you really get on a good session and stuff like that. Saturday, you feel crap. So you eat more crap and drink more crap. Just basically because you're thinking that might make you feel better. Then you're feeling bad because you've done so well during the week, but it's gone out the window now. So we'll start again Monday. It's that vicious circle, and then you'll do it again. And it's changing that thinking to think, right, Friday I am going to go out. We're out for a meal. I'm going to have a few beers. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm going to relax, chill out, and whatever I eat and whatever I drink is fine. But then just keep it to Friday. Saturday, go back to looking after yourself and things like that. And I always try now not to have more than 2 days of really bad.
Yeah.
Because the main reason myself, and you can contradict me or change me if I'm wrong, it's because I start to really feel sluggish and bad myself. It's a bit like, and I found this quite bizarre because I've been looking after myself better. I had a chocolate bar the other day before I went to bed. But I tell you what, I woke up the next day, dry mouth. It was almost like I've been drinking because I hadn't had it for so long. And it felt like a bit of a hangover. And I was like, oh, I don't want that anymore. So I might not, and it almost starts to change the way that you're doing things.
Yeah, it's interesting that, Mark. And the thing is, right, is that a lot of my coaching service is all about improving someone's relationship with food and breaking down, as we talked about, like different mindsets we might have about finishing food or finishing plates or the foods that we eat or the myths we might believe. And one of those things is about accepting that we can have the foods that we desire and that there aren't actually any truly unhealthy foods that are going to bring us down. Something I like to do with clients is build a bit more flexibility into their week, because a lot of people, when they go on a healthy eating regime, will be very strict. They'll be very, very bland with it as well. Like they'll make very boring food choices and maybe undereat a lot as well because of that, which then gives you that weekend of like, hey, it's the weekend, I'm going to enjoy myself. Like, let's have this, and this. And you just have those two extremes. Whereas if you were including more foods in your week that were quote unquote unhealthy or bad, but in smaller amounts and really enjoying them, it would be interesting to see then how that weekend itis falls away. And it's natural for you to eat a bit more on a weekend. You've got a bit more time for yourself. You're relaxing a little bit more. Again, that's fine. But it's just doing it in a way where you're not sabotaging your efforts. You don't go through that, well, there's no point, I'll start again Monday. And you go through that idea of how much of this food do I really need or want right now? Like that meal out on a Friday, having a couple of bevies, absolutely fine. But again, are you having that food and then finishing all of it? You're having 3 courses, eating way beyond fullness. Those are the things that are holding you back, as opposed to the food itself. So it's looking at the quantity of those foods you're having, not just the fact that you're having them in the first place.
Portion size is massively important, and that's probably something I still struggle with my evening meals. I probably still have too big of portions, but I can work on that.
Exactly. And the thing I say with that, Mark, sorry to cut across you, because it will be most people's problem, right? Is that there'll be a huge gap between lunch and dinner for a lot of people, which will make then that evening meal far too big, and might include a lot of snacks beforehand because you're just absolutely starving. So for a lot of people, I'm like, have a snack at 3 or 4 o'clock, because actually if you have a balanced snack, you're gonna not gorge at dinner, you're not going to binge before dinner, that kind of thing. And binging after dinner is a big thing for people as well, the kind of snacks in front of the TV. But with their evening meal, you either start with less and go back for more if you truly are hungry, and having smaller plates is a great way to incorporate this. Or if you're having a meal as a family and you have that sit down family experience of like, let's all sit at the table together and eat a meal and actually chat to each other, one of the biggest things that you can do to improve your portion control and your children's, for those that are parents, is include everything in the middle of the meal in the table, and then just get people to help themselves and say, have as much of this as you feel like you need. There, we've got these vegetables, we've got this carb source, we've got this sort of meat dish or fish dish or whatever, or if it's just a 1-pot meal, have as much as you feel like you need. They're going to start with less. They're going to eat until they feel satisfied. If there's stuff left over, that's a great thing to incorporate for lunches and snacks the next day. And then kids don't feel pressured into eating too much, and neither do you.
No, that's really, really good. I think there'd be a free-for-all initially in my house. If we put all the food in the middle of the table, I'll be there trying to get it all. The kids will be there trying to get it. It'll be crazy. But no, it makes a lot of sense. And I suppose you could go to the sort of Oriental culture as well, where that's what they do a lot of the time. It's smaller plates, smaller dishes. Everybody, they have the turntables and everything, don't they? Everybody helps themselves to a little bit of something. And eats till they're full. They're not there with a massive... It's the tradition sort of thing in this country, in America, and also is to have that big plate. Your eyes are bigger than your belly, the old saying there, which, as you go to any carvery, especially in South Yorkshire or North Yorkshire where you are, you go to any carvery and you're filling that bad boy up. You're getting your money's worth, aren't you? Even if you don't eat it all, you'll do your best to have it all. And I think it is just getting out of those. And you end up not enjoying it, like you say, don't you?
Exactly, Mark. And that's the key, right? Is that so... Because you just mentioned there, like, my kids, they'll just be a free-for-all. And part of repairing our relationship with food is removing any idea of food scarcity. Okay. And so, because when there's scarcity around food, there is then a mindset of, I must have as much of this as I can because I don't know when I'm going to have it again. And that's why with buffets, we get our money's worth, because it's like, I'm not going to come to a buffet again for 3 weeks, so I'm going to get as much Chinese food as I can, or I'm going to get as much carvery on my plate as possible. I've paid for this, so I'm going to make the most of it. That's part of, like, obviously our budgetary mindset too, but it's brought on from scarcity. It's like, when am I going to have this food again? It's Last Supper mindset is what it's known as in the research, and that's the exact relationship we need to remove from the treat food that we spoke about, pizzas and pastries and cakes and chocolate bars. If these foods are perceived as bad and aren't in our vicinity, when we do have them, we're just going to be like, wow, come on, this is on it. It's treat day, cheat weekend, whatever you want to call it. And that terminology and language with food is what causes the overeating. Whereas if you've just got a pantry or a cupboard that's just full of chocolate, biscuits, sweets, this is new age thinking for a nutritionist as well, because we used to get taught, get problem foods out of the house, so it was out of sight, out of mind. New research suggests that actually increases people's overeating of those foods, whereas having them in vicinity and knowing that you can have them if you truly want to, but then having a mindset around food where you're eating for your health and goals, you can start to repair that bridge around food where you're eating it in a quantity that suits your health and goals. That just takes time. It scares people at first, but it's like, let's say, Mark, your best friend now moves country, right? And they live in another country for sort of 5 years. You never see them. They then move back to the UK and they buy the house next door. Well, when they first get back, you're going to be like, "Oh my God, we've got so much catching up to do. Let's go for beers. Let's go for brunch. Let's hang out at each other's house. Let's have game night. Let's go for a walk. Let's go to the gym together. Let's do all these things." And then after a week or two, or maybe a month, you're going to be like, "I'm pretty bored of that now. And I know that I can see them whenever I want to."
Yeah.
And so you'll go back into a normal relationship with that friend. That's exactly where we need to get to with food. So it's knowing that that food is available whenever I want it. I just don't want it now. And that's part of the satisfaction thing you said. When you overeat, you've gone beyond satisfaction. So refinding that again is where we need to get to. And then that's how we find the moderation that's right for us.
Nice. Yeah, it's really, really good way of looking at it. And the way you put it across then as well, so simplified and stuff, that just works brilliantly. Because what I speak to, I've got a few friends and things like that, and some family members as well that live on their own. And they say, well, it's all right for you, Mark. You've got support of your family. You know, you've got your wife around you and your kids. And I said, well, it's not always works like that, because obviously they do like sweet things. They like to have the treats. And, you know, when you've got kids and everything like that, you are going to have snacks and stuff like that in the house. So I always think to myself, well, there's more temptation there for me. Whereas if I was living on my own, I just wouldn't buy it. So I wouldn't have it in the house. But I also like the way that, you know, I can still do this knowing that it is in the cupboards, like you say, or it is in the fridge. And I think it was you that said, you know, you can have that slice of cake, just don't eat the whole bloody thing.
Exactly.
The whole cake. It's about having that moderation and things. So, I mean, the top tips and everything that you've covered there have been brilliant. But obviously, I want to talk a little bit business about you as well. So obviously, you've got your nutrition business, which is growing strength by strength. You've also got your property side of it as well. And can I just say, what made you sort of go into the property side of things?
The property side of things has been something that I've been interested in for quite a few years. But it was very much the standard way of investing in property, you know, like the old school, like save up money, buy a house, and then like go again. And I was quite fortunate in that, I mean, well, you could look at it two ways. When my grandma passed away, and she lived to a ripe old age, so, you know, it was very much expected and obviously part of life. She left my brother and I her house. She also left us half of her business, and that left my brother and I with a considerable amount of capital. My mum had a bit of capital as well. And what we ended up doing was pooling it together, you know, classic kind of joint venture. And this was back when I was, sort of early adult, so no idea about what joint ventures or anything were. But we bought some properties back in Carlisle, which is where I grew up. Right. So we ended up having 5 or 6 properties jointly owned. And I've had those up until now. I'm in the process of selling off my shares in that to my brother, actually, because he's quite likely to move back that way because his partner's, you know, from there and they've got a family sort of up there, whereas I'm very much situated down here in Leeds and want to stay here. So then that gives me capital now to reinvest further. And my partner and I started looking into the property investing space last year. We were reading different books and educating ourselves on how to do it properly, I guess would be the better word. And when we found the Property Investor Network circuit, we went to our local meeting, we connected with the host. We ended up bumping into the host, Dave Dixon, at at an auction house. We were like looking at auction properties and bumped into him and struck up a bit of a friendship. And from there, you know, Dave was kind of the first major person I networked with. And through talking with him and all the rest of it, we kind of came up with a plan of getting more involved with property. And what we're doing now is the house that I'm in is in one of the most desirable areas in Leeds. It's a very much a doer-upper, huge plot of land out to the side. So we've got planning permission. We've got plans to make it a big extension, which we're using my kind of pot of capital with to then refinance it, pull the money out. And what my partner and I want to do actually is go much more down the serviced accommodation route. So my partner is hugely interested in interior. She's got low-level sort of qualifications in that and has worked for the paint company Farrow and Ball. With my health and fitness, we want to create serviced accommodation homes, like weekend homes, holiday homes in the Yorkshire countryside that have a health and fitness twist. So not a retreat as per se, like a weekend event, but more of a place where someone like you and I could go, Mark, with our family or our friends and we know that we're going to have a great time in the countryside and also be able to keep on top of our health. So we'll have the right equipment in the kitchen. We'll have rooms that have got sleep guides in them in terms of like how to have the perfect night's sleep. We'll have temperature adjustments and things for that to be the case. We're going to have meditation spaces, reading spaces, exercise spaces, recipe guides, and then even links to like local wellness experts like yoga and personal trainers and people like that for people to have experiences. And that's where we're going to kind of set ourselves up and increase our portfolio that way.
That's brilliant. I love that. Like niche it out and everything, and then incorporate what your passions are and what you enjoy to help others. That's absolutely, well, as soon as you get one of those, sign me up. I'll be there. I'll be there. That sounds absolutely awesome.
I'll get in touch with you, Mark. We'll need early adopters for great reviews. So
yeah, definitely. I'm always good for a testimonial.
Yeah, so that's how we kind of got into it. So it's been a passion it's been something I've held onto for a long time. I knew that I wanted to invest in assets alongside building my own business. It was just doing it at the right time. And as this business grew to a certain position and my partner and I found that shared interest in property as well, it was like, as we educated ourselves and attended PIN meetings, it was like, wow, let's really get involved in this. And it's definitely something we're going to look to after we've done this property, really take kind of forward as well. It's just managing time, as we both know, it's managing time between different entities to best effect.
Well, that's it. I suppose when you've got your coaching and everything going on as well, it is just making sure that you can maximize your output without obviously having too many conflicts of interest in your productivity and everything. So it's always a handful, isn't it? It's always spinning the plates. We spin all the plates, and it's just a case of most of the time just trying not to drop any.
Yeah.
No, that sounds really, really good. I didn't know you were doing that, so that's quite fascinating.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, just to say there, you also have your daily podcast, don't you? You have your own podcast, which
I do.
And I know your episodes come out every day, so that's got to keep you on your toes as well, hasn't it? But just tell the listeners about that.
Yeah, so Next Step Espresso is the name of the podcast because it's a daily shot of fitness, and that's like collabing with my love of great coffee. But it's different to this, Mark. Obviously, you and I are having an interview, and this is a long form podcast, which you do every week. Whereas the daily podcast is 5 to 10 minutes and it's tidbits of information. The best way that I could share it is that if you go, nobody's going to be able to go all the way back to the beginning, but I'm sharing mindset, behavior, and habit tips that help people with their everyday health and fitness. And it follows almost my journey through my own fitness as well as my own education. Because if you were to go back to the beginning, I talk about a lot of things that I might not talk about now, because I've maybe changed my mind on things or new research has come out, which has led me to have a different approach. So, you could start right now and you'd get a lot out of it. My idea is that I break tasks down and make them simple. And hopefully every day someone's going to listen to that and think, that's quite a cool little tip. Actually, I'm going to take that with me. And it's going to give you a little either actionable step or a mindset tip that helps you feel in a positive way about your health and fitness and empowers you to take action. Because at the end of the day, Mark, there's no lack of information of this stuff online, but it's the fact that people don't take action. It's like business. You can read and learn and watch videos and all the rest of it, but if you don't actually start doing things, you're not going to get anywhere. No. And if I could give anyone a tip on business, I mean, that's been probably my biggest downfall. It's funny, with health and fitness, I overcame it because I educated myself and then got a coach and took action. With business, it's similar, but I've probably done the kind of like learning and coaching too much. And it's like, now you just need to sort of take consistent action rather than thinking there's something greener on the other side.
I think that's it as well. If somebody puts a step-by-step process in front of you, follow it step by step, watch it, learn it, follow it, but actually take the action to do it, because it's they say course junkies and things, don't they? And it's very easy in this day and age now with all the information to do a course and think, well, hang on a minute, that sounds like hard work. Let me try this course, it might be a bit easier, or let me try this training, it might be a bit easier. It's not. It's really just taking the actions, and everything's tricky and difficult when you start or feels awkward. And training and eating healthily is no different. But as long as you keep doing it, it becomes easier and easier. And this is coming from, like I say, somebody who's such a fussy eater. At the end of the day, I was terrible. I mean, I probably ate about 5 different things all year long when I was younger, because I was just a real issue with that. So, you know, my whole palate and everything's opened up massively now, but it's taken time. It's taken time to work. And also the habits and things. I mean, in one sense, it's quite good because I only eat a certain set number of different foods, really. And if I like them, I don't get bored that easily. I'm quite happy just to eat the same things all the time. So in some senses, as long as I can eat the healthy things and not binge on the rubbish all the time, I'm all right. But if obviously it can work against you if it's just rubbish that you're eating and things like that. But no, I like the fact that you know, the podcast there. I know you're on about 700 and something. I can't remember exactly what it was, 700 or something episodes. But it is little chunks, and it's easy just to listen to and just think, oh yeah, I like that today. So no, I've been listening to those and going back through them, and there's plenty to go back through there, and some great advice as well. So what I'd like to do now, as I know time is ticking on and we're busy people, is I like to do a little quick fire round where I ask a few questions. And this is more, as I always say, just because I'm nosy and I like to see what people are doing, reading and all of that sort of thing. So it's just a bit of fun. And the first question I like to ask people is, what's the best advice you've ever had? Or just some good advice?
You're going to have to take out the pause. I did a quick fire round yesterday, Mark, and you'll have to take out the pauses as I consider the answer if you drop a bomb like that. What's the best advice I've ever had? Wow.
Or the best advice recently, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. The best advice is taking imperfect action and adjusting it from there. Because as we just spoke about before, you can plan, you can learn, you can read, you can plan. But if you don't start doing things, nothing's actually going to move the needle. So you need to get in the zone. You need to get in the heat. And you need to take action, and you need to review that action and adjust rather than continually just learning new things.
Yeah. Get in the game. Brilliant. So if you could sit down and have dinner, and let's make it a healthy dinner, with 3 people, they could be dead, they can be alive. Who would you like to sit down to and pick their brains?
So 3 people I'd love to have dinner with would be probably people like Michael Jordan, Shane Warne as well, and then as a third person, I'm trying to think, and Hugh Jackman. Oh
yeah, that'd be a good table. I'm always interested in this because the dynamics of it all and everything is really interesting. But yeah, Michael Jordan's definitely one of mine, just for that mindset. Just the drive of the guy is phenomenal.
Unreal, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, to get to the level that you're going to get at. So that's a good one. Do you actually listen to podcasts? I know you probably spend all your time recording yours because it comes out daily. But what are your top podcasts?
Top podcasts for me would be Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. Recently, when I was educating myself on nutrition, I loved the Sigma Nutrition Radio podcast. I've not listened to a lot to it recently, but that's got really big deep dives. So if you're really into the science of it, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm trying to think about another one. A lot of the time now, Mark, I listen to Audible books. So those 2 podcasts for sure would be my go-tos at the moment.
Okay, brilliant. That's great. And we're moving on to books then. What are your sort of top 3 books that you think, you know, are really good reads?
Let's break this down. Business-wise, I would recommend Beyond Entrepreneurship 2.0 by Jim Collins, BE 2.0. Really, really fantastic book. Another great one would be Oversubscribed by Daniel Priestley. And then the best nutrition and fitness book I would recommend people buy would be a book called Lean and Strong. And it's by a guy called Joshua Hillis. And he talks a lot about value-based decision-making using skills and guidelines, which are the kind of things that you and I have chatted about here, rather than using rigid diets and rules, which is what a lot of people use.
Brilliant. Okay, that's great. That's a couple of those I haven't heard of as well, which is always good. So I can get those on the list. And that's great. That's great. So, I mean, really, that's the quick fire round. You did that quite quick. It's like looking at what does the future hold for you? What are your next plans? What are you striving to do? Always interested.
What are my next steps, as it were? So with Next Step Nutrition, I did a big review over the last 2 quarters, and these next 2 quarters, I'm focusing a lot on long form content. So I've been, really avid on social media and creating short podcasts, but my long form game for things that stick around and are real deep dives into things are quite poor. So what I want to do over the next 6 months is really nail my blog and longer form YouTube content. So, and then that's going to feed into my daily content as a way to repurpose it, because I'm still a one-man band. I've had different learnings about outsourcing things. So what I want to do over the next 6 months is build that long form content as I develop my next coaching program, which is going to be my core service. And then from there, as I grow Next Step Nutrition, I'm going to be looking to take on team members rather than outsourcing things to agencies or other one-man bands. So I want to build the team of people who believe in the Next Step mission rather than outsourcing it to individuals. That can be helpful for some people. For me personally, I've just found different issues. From a property perspective, it's getting this house done, right? So we want to get our renovation done. It's a 2-story extension to make it a 3-bed terrace into a 4-bed with a great garden, double driveway, EV charger, that kind of thing. So those are the next steps. And then once we've pulled the capital out of that, it's going to be exploring this serviced accommodation route. So we're going to be really hammering mostly probably purchase lease option strategies or rent to SA. And it's going to be about building the schedule that will allow my partner and I to do that, and potentially outsourcing that lead generation to a VA. And we've got some contacts that would help us probably get that done.
Excellent. Well, if you need any help with anything like that or any questions, you know where I am as well. Always happy to help. And
of course, I forgot, Mark, I'm adding your podcast to my listening, because I've seen you've had some great guests on recently that I really want to listen to. Brilliant.
Appreciate that. So if people want to, find out more about you, your services, your podcast and everything like that, where's the best way to get hold of you?
So the podcast, you can search for Next Step Espresso. So not espresso, on all podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you listen to your podcasts. If people want to reach out to me, then head to nextstepnutrition.co.uk and head to the About Me page. You'll find my LinkedIn, my Facebook, my Instagram, all the good stuff is there. There is a lot of blogs on there at the moment, but it was based on my daily show. So there are some great blogs you can dig into, but they are going to be collaborated into bigger deep dives. So that soon will be a great resource for people as well.
Brilliant. And I'll add links to those in the show notes for this as well. So if you have show notes where you're listening to this or watching this, then they will be there and you can just click away to your heart's content. And I mean, I'd normally say goodbye now, but I am going to say what if like myself starting out busy in business and everything like that, what would you say, what would you recommend for people now that maybe, are a bit overweight, want to start doing something, are thinking, I don't have time and all of that. What would you say to them now, Jonny?
Book a free consultation with myself because I do offer a 30-minute free call. And in that, we'll actually look at strategy and we'll look at action steps and things like that, because I don't take on everyone that wants to work with me. They do have to be the right fit, and I've got to be the right fit for them. Hiring I am an online nutritionist and personal trainer. So everything I do is via consultations like this through video, and then through programming them through an app and providing them resources and things to follow at home. So that would be my advice. But if you don't want to do that, my best advice is to start small, but start taking action, because the only thing you can control are your action steps. You can't control how much weight you lose. You can't control how much muscle you gain. Can't control any of those things, but you can control the action that you take. So start with 1 to 3 habits that you want to stick to weekly. Do those until they become habits, and then add to them, and don't try and do everything at once.
Brilliant. That's great. Brilliant advice. Thank you very much for that. And please do take him up on the consultation. He's a fantastic guy to speak to. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And I hope in the future we can get you back on as well. And once you've set up your serviced accommodations and everything, we can have a little chat about the pitfalls and the trials and tribulations of all of that as well. Say again, mate.
I'd love that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. No, that'd be brilliant. So thank you very much for coming on. And it's been great. I'm sure everybody's got fantastic knowledge and everything from it. I hope you have. I certainly have myself. Take plenty of notes. And like I say, check out the show notes for all the links provided. You all take care and bye for now.